We all think about getting older. It happens to everyone. Your hair gets a little grayer. Your skin isn't as tight as it used to be. You get tired more easily. It's just a fact of life. Or is it? For a long time, we've accepted aging as inevitable, a one-way street. But what if it isn't? What if aging is less like a clock and more like a program? And if it's a program, maybe we can hack it. This isn't just science fiction anymore. And scientists are seriously looking at the nuts and bolts of how we age. And one of the most exciting areas of research has to do with tiny little things at the ends of our DNA. They're called telomeres. You might have heard of them. They've been called our biological clock. The idea is simple. As we get older, our telomeres get shorter. When they get too short, bad things start to happen. So the big question is, if we can stop them from shortening or even make them longer again, can we slow down or even reverse aging? It's a huge question, and the answer is complicated. It's not a simple yes or no. It's a story about biology, about risk, and about what it even means to be human. So let's talk about it. No hype, no miracle cures, just what we know, what we don't know, and where this incredible science might be heading. First, we need to understand what these telomeres actually are. The best way to think about them is to look at your shoelaces. At the very end of each lace, there's a little plastic or metal cap. That cap is called an aglet. Its job is to stop the shoelace from fraying and falling apart. Without it, the lace would quickly become a useless mess of threads. Our chromosomes are a bit like those shoelaces. Chromosomes are the tightly coiled bundles of DNA inside our cells. They contain the blueprint for our entire body. Every instruction for building and running you is in there. And just like a shoelace, the ends of these long DNA strands are fragile. They need protection. Telomeres are those protective caps. They are long, repetitive sequences of DNA that don't code for anything. They're just buffers, sacrificial bits of material on the end of the important stuff. So why do we even need them? It comes down to a fundamental problem with how our cells copy themselves. Our bodies are constantly making new cells. We need new skin cells, new blood cells, new cells to line our gut. This process of cell division is essential for life. To make a new cell, the parent cell has to make a perfect copy of its DNA. The machinery that copies our DNA is amazing, but it has one little quirk. It can't copy the DNA all the way to the very, very end. Think of it like a painter painting a floor. To finish, they have to back out of the room. There's always going to be one last spot where they were standing that they can't paint. The DNA copying machinery has a similar problem. Each time a chromosome is copied, a tiny piece of the end, a little bit of that telomere, is lost. It doesn't get copied, so with every single cell division, the telomeres on our chromosomes get a tiny bit shorter. It's a slow, steady process, like a candle burning down. For a while, it doesn't matter. The telomeres are long, and they're just buffer. Losing a small piece doesn't harm the important genetic information inside. But it can't go on forever. Eventually, after maybe 50 or 60 divisions, the telomeres become critically short. The cell's internal machinery senses this. It's an alarm bell. It signals that the chromosome is now unprotected. If the cell were to divide again, it would start losing actual important genetic code. That would be catastrophic. It could lead to mutations and all sorts of problems like cancer. To prevent this disaster, the cell does one of two things. It can enter a state called senescence. It stops dividing permanently. It doesn't die, it just sits there. It's sometimes called a zombie cell, or it can trigger a self-destruct program called apoptosis. It commits cellular suicide for the greater good of the organism. This whole process is the link between telomeres and aging. As we live our lives, our cells are dividing over and over. Our telomeres are getting shorter and shorter. We start to accumulate more and more of these senescent, non-dividing cells. These zombie cells aren't just freeloaders. They are actively harmful. They pump out a cocktail of inflammatory chemicals that damage the surrounding tissue. This chronic, low-grade inflammation is a hallmark of aging. It contributes to arthritis, heart disease, and a general decline in how our tissues and organs function. The shortening of telomeres is a direct driver of the aging process at the cellular level. This all sounds pretty bleak, a one-way ticket to old age, but there's a twist in the story. Our bodies have a way to fight back. There's an enzyme called telomerase. Its job is to add length back onto telomeres. It rebuilds them. It's like having a mechanic who can recap your shoelaces. So if we have this amazing repair enzyme, why do we age at all? Why isn't telomerase working in all our cells all the time, keeping our telomeres perpetually long? This is the crucial part of the puzzle. It turns out telomerase is turned off in most of our adult cells. It's active in our stem cells, which need to divide many times to replenish our tissues. It's also active in sperm and egg cells so that we don't pass on our shortened telomeres to our children. But In most of the regular cells that make up our bodies, the telomerase gene is silenced. The reason for this is a massive life or death trade-off. The trade-off is cancer. Cancer is basically a disease of uncontrolled cell division. A cancer cell is a cell that has forgotten how to stop. For a tumor to grow and become dangerous, its cells need to divide thousands, millions, billions of times. But they face the same problem as our healthy cells. Their telomeres will shorten with each division. A budding cancer should, in theory, divide itself into extinction. Its telomeres would get too short and the cells would die off. But cancer is clever. One of the key steps for a cell to become truly cancerous is that it has to find a way to switch its telomerase gene back on. About 90% of all cancers have reactivated telomerase. This makes them essentially immortal. They can divide forever without their telomeres ever shortening. They have solved their end-of-the-road problem. So, our bodies made an evolutionary bargain. We suppress telomerase in most of our cells as a powerful anti-cancer mechanism. It puts a finite lifespan on our cells. It's a safety feature. The price we pay for this protection is aging. We trade a longer, healthier life for a much lower risk of cancer early in life. It's a devil's bargain, but it's one that has allowed our species to survive. This brings us back to the central question. Can we hack this system? If we could turn telomerase back on, but only in our healthy cells, could we lengthen our telomeres and reverse aging? The idea is incredibly seductive, and scientists have been working on it for years. The first big breakthroughs came from studies in mice. Scientists genetically engineered mice to have their telomerase gene active all the time. The results were pretty amazing. These mice didn't get cancer at a higher rate. Instead, they lived longer, healthier lives. They had better organ function, healthier skin, and were more resistant to age-related diseases. Then, they tried something even more dramatic. They took old mice that were already showing signs of aging, and used a special trick to switch on their dormant telomerase gene. What happened was stunning. The mice were rejuvenated, their shortened telomeres grew longer. Their shrunken brains and other organs regrew. Their cognitive function improved. They even got their sense of smell back, something mice lose with age. In many ways, they reversed the aging process in these animals. These mouse studies were a huge proof of concept. They showed that, at least in a lab animal, aging wasn't a one-way street. The biological clock could be turned back. This opened the floodgates for research into how we could do this in humans. There are a few different approaches being explored. One is gene therapy. This is the most direct method. The idea is to use a harmless virus, like an adeno-associated virus AAV, as a delivery truck. You load the virus with the gene for telomerase and inject it into the body. The virus then infects cells and delivers the gene, instructing them to start producing the telomerase enzyme. This is the approach that a controversial biotech CEO named Liz Parrish famously tried on herself in 2015. She claims to have received gene therapy to lengthen her telomeres. According to her company, the therapy worked, and a blood test showed that her telomeres had lengthened significantly, equivalent to reversing about 20 years of aging at the cellular level. This is a very bold claim, and it's important to say that this was not a proper clinical trial. It was an N of one experiment, meaning it was just on one person. It wasn't peer-reviewed, and many scientists are very skeptical. But it captured the public's imagination. It made the idea of hacking our own telomeres feel real. A less radical approach involves looking for small molecules, basically drugs, that can encourage our cells to turn their own telomerase gene back on. Instead of adding a new gene, these drugs would just flip the switch on the one that's already there. A compound called TA65 is one such product derived from the astragalus root. It's sold as a nutritional supplement. Some small studies have shown it can lengthen short telomeres and improve some markers of immune health. But the evidence is still limited, and it's far from a proven anti-aging pill. So we have these exciting, high-tech possibilities on the horizon. Gene therapies and special drugs. But is there anything we can do right now to protect our telomeres? The answer is yes. And it's not anything you have to buy from a secretive lab. It's the stuff we already know is good for us. Lifestyle has a huge impact on the rate at which our telomeres shorten. Think of it this way. Your genetics might determine the initial length of your telomeres, but your lifestyle determines how quickly you burn through them. One of the biggest factors is stress. Chronic psychological stress is a telomere killer. Studies have shown that people who are under constant stress, like caregivers for a chronically ill family member, have shorter telomeres than people of the same age who aren't under that kind of pressure. The stress hormone cortisol seems to be the culprit. It creates inflammation and oxidative stress, which is like a chemical assault on our cells and our DNA. This damage accelerates telomere shortening. On the flip side, things that reduce stress, like meditation and mindfulness, have been shown to protect telomeres and even increase telomerase activity. Exercise is another powerful tool. You might think that physical activity, which puts stress on the body, would be bad for telomeres. But it's the opposite. Regular, moderate exercise, particularly aerobic exercise like running or cycling, has been consistently linked to longer telomeres. Exercise seems to reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. It also appears to directly boost the activity of the telomerase enzyme. So, an active lifestyle helps your cells maintain and repair their telomeres. Diet is also critical. A diet rich in antioxidants, like the ones found in fruits and vegetables, helps protect your DNA from damage. Processed foods, sugar, and red meat are associated with inflammation and oxidative stress, which in turn leads to shorter telomeres. A Mediterranean-style diet, rich in plants, healthy fats, and fish, is often pointed to as being telomere-friendly. And finally, sleep. Getting enough high-quality sleep is essential for all kinds of cellular repair processes. Lack of sleep contributes to oxidative stress and inflammation, accelerating the shortening of your telomeres. So, the boring advice your doctor gives you, eat your vegetables, get some exercise, manage your stress, and get a good night's sleep is actually cutting-edge anti-aging medicine. It's the simplest, safest way to hack your telomeres. But let's be honest, most of the excitement isn't about eating more kale. It's about the possibility of a real powerful medical intervention. It's about the gene therapies and the drugs. And that's where we have to be incredibly careful. We have to talk about the risks. The biggest, scariest risk is the one we already discussed, cancer. The reason telomerase is switched off in most of our cells is to prevent cancer. If we go in and start switching it back on all over the body, we could be disabling one of our most important safety mechanisms. We might be giving a precancerous cell the one tool it needs to become immortal and grow into a deadly tumor. The mouse studies are encouraging because the mice didn't seem to get more cancer. But mice aren't humans. They are much smaller, have shorter lifespans, and their cancer biology is different. What works for them might not work for us. The risk of cancer is the giant shadow that hangs over all of telomere therapy. Any potential treatment would have to be proven to be incredibly safe before it could ever be widely used. How do you prove that something doesn't increase your cancer risk over a period of 20 or 30 years? It's a very, very difficult problem to solve. Beyond cancer, there are other unknowns. We are talking about meddling with one of the most fundamental processes of life and death at the cellular level. What are the unintended consequences? Could it cause other problems with our immune system? Could it lead to abnormal tissue growth? Right? We evolved this system of telomere shortening over millions of years. It's probably integrated with other biological processes in ways we don't even understand yet. For overriding, it could be like pulling a single thread that unravels the whole sweater. And there's another important point to consider. Telomeres are not the whole story of aging. They are a big part of it for sure. But aging is a complex process with many different causes. There's the accumulation of DNA damage from other sources. There's the decline of our mitochondria, the power plants of our cells. There are changes in how our genes are expressed, known as epigenetics. There's the buildup of junk proteins inside and outside our cells. Fixing our telomeres might be like patching the roof of a house while the foundations are crumbling. It would certainly help. It might make the house last longer, but it wouldn't make it brand new. It wouldn't stop the other forms of decay. So, even a perfect telomere therapy would likely not be a true cure for aging. It would be a powerful tool to fight it, but not a magic bullet. It would extend our health span, the number of healthy years we have, but it probably wouldn't make us immortal. So, where does that leave us? What does the future look like? In the short term, the most realistic use for telomere therapy won't be for healthy 30-year-olds who want to stay young forever. It will be for treating specific diseases that are driven by critically short telomeres. There are rare genetic disorders, like dyskeratosis congenita, where people are born with faulty telomerase and age prematurely. Gene therapy could be a literal lifesaver for them. It could also be used to treat common age-related diseases. For example, in pulmonary fibrosis, the stem cells in the lungs can't keep up with the damage, and the lungs fill with scar tissue. This is linked to short telomeres. A therapy that lengthens telomeres just in the lung cells could be a powerful treatment. The same goes for regenerating the immune system in the elderly to help them fight off infections or treating bone marrow failure. And targeted therapies for specific diseases are much more likely to be the first application of this technology. It's safer. It has a clearer goal than trying to de-age an entire person. Looking further into the future, if we can solve the cancer safety problem, we might see systemic telomere therapies become a reality. Perhaps it would be a treatment you get every decade or so to turn back the clock on your cells. This is where things start to feel like science fiction, and it raises all sorts of ethical and social questions. Who would get access to this kind of treatment? Would it only be for the super rich? Would it create a new class divide between the long-lived haves and the regular mortal have-nots? What would it do to our society? Our planet is already overpopulated. What would happen if people started living to be 150 or 200? How would our ideas about careers, family, and the meaning of life change? A human life has a natural rhythm. A beginning, a middle, and an end. What happens when you radically change that rhythm? Would a 150-year-old life still feel meaningful, or would it just become boring? These are not questions for scientists to answer alone. They are questions for all of us. The technology is moving fast, and we need to start thinking about these things now. So, can we reverse aging by hacking our telomeres? The answer is a qualified, cautious, and very exciting maybe. We have discovered a fundamental mechanism of aging. We have shown in principle in lab animals that this mechanism can be manipulated. We can turn the clock back. That is a monumental achievement. It changes how we think about aging. It's no longer an absolute, unchangeable law of nature. It's a biological process. And biological processes can be understood and potentially controlled. But we are still at the very beginning of this journey. The path from a mouse in a lab to a safe and effective therapy for humans is long and full of challenges. The risk of cancer is real and must be overcome. We need to understand the unintended consequences of messing with such a basic part of our biology. For now, the best way to hack your telomeres is to live a healthy life. Eat well. Move your body. Sleep. Find ways to be calm. These things don't just make you feel better today. They are actively preserving the protective caps on your DNA, slowing down your biological clock one day at a time. The future of telomere therapy is incredibly promising. It may one day give us the tools to treat devastating age-related diseases and allow us all to live longer, healthier lives. It's a revolution in the making, but it's not here yet, and we have to approach it with a healthy dose of realism, a deep respect for the complexity of our own bodies, and a lot of caution. The secrets to a longer life might be hidden in the ends of our DNA, but unlocking them safely will be one of the greatest scientific challenges of our time.